Yes, check it out. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The House List. Yes, it's my weekly podcast. My name is Peter Agoston. I'm the host and producer of the show. Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time checking this out, I appreciate it. You can find The House List on iTunes, the Stitcher app, Google Play. It's on SoundCloud, too, for those that listen on a desktop computer or a laptop or whatever. You can find it at soundcloud.com/TheHouseListPodcast. I'm also on Twitter at HouseListPod. Okay, so I did that stuff. We have a pretty incredible episode today. And trying to figure out where to start here. Because my guest and I had been sort of in communication for months about doing this. And like any kind of guest, sometimes it takes a while to find the right time. And we finally made it happen. And I went out to Long Island and I did it on Long Island with my guest, Michael Alig. Yes, the one and only Michael Alig is our guest on the house list for this episode. And we had a great conversation. His friend and I guess coworker at one point in time also joined us. We were at her home. She was very gracious to let me do it there. And her name is Jane. Hi, Jane. Thank you again for setting this up. So I'll put it in this kind of a way. Let me frame it to you in a certain way. I wanted to do this specifically to talk about old clubs, defunct clubs in New York City, and Michael's early years as a party organizer, a show promoter, if you will, and the stuff that falls under that banner, and also his work and time at Project X magazine, which was I found to be a really imperative and pretty cutting edge nightlife zine magazine print publication that ran from the late 80s into basically to the early mid 90s. And as that magazine evolved, so did the surrounding nightlife culture of New York City. And as you would see, as the magazine evolved more and altered, you would see how that resonated well outside of the island of Manhattan and into other major cities in North America and all over the world. And with the boom of sort of rave culture and 90s fashion exploding in MTV and like Club MTV and this sort of commercial commodification of it, there's just a lot of points of reference that I find very fascinating. I didn't focus on any kind of well-worn territory or any kind of controversial footnotes or anything. In fact, there's that's clearly been covered time and time again. There's really a good 4 or 5 full feature-length films that you can find and watch if you like. Now, for those that might not be familiar with Michael, and I assume that there definitely are some people that aren't knowing who this is. They're just like, wait, who's this dude that Peter's talking to? Well, if you ever saw the movie Party Monster, which came out in 2003, that Macaulay Culkin and Seth Green were in, the character whom Macaulay Culkin was playing is based off of my guest on the podcast today. And Party Monster, of course, is also the title of a documentary that came out in 1998 as well, that has definitely a huge cult following. And even 2 years ago, really, there was another sort of almost like a follow-up to the Party Monster documentary called Glory Days, The Life and Times of Michael Alig. So Yeah, and even there's the Limelight too, the infamous club that's part of a network of clubs that was owned by Peter Gatien in the 90s, late 80s and mid to the mid 90s. There's a documentary that came out 2011 there, so there's a lot of visual stuff. If you are unfamiliar with my guest, to go back on, and I implore you to. They're pretty fascinating films, but that's not really exactly what I was going there to talk about. We didn't really talk about the club kids, or anything beyond just trying to get a sense of shows and invitations and conceptualizing stuff. So we had this kind of frenetic conversation as he pulled out several boxes of invites, which you'll see I continuously call flyers over and over and over. But I think that's just part of my vernacular. As a booking agent, as a show promoter myself, I always call them flyers. But what Michael did, and what a lot of other promoters, I guess, if you will, of the time did, especially with these outlaw parties, which were roving, events that happened in outside or inside spaces that weren't traditional clubs. You had to be invited, and it was to kind of create a groundswell to get people out. So I wanted to talk about that stuff because there's not a lot of documentation on his angle, because obviously there's a lot of controversy that's always been focused on. But when you start getting into that world a little bit more, and you start, and the Project X zine and the history of that, there's a whole cast of characters that, and many of which are not with us today anymore, and some are, but there's some really great artists and performance artists and fixtures of that scene. And I wasn't there for that. I wasn't in New York in the early 90s, in the late 80s, early 90s. So a lot of that, I'm just trying to uncover some of those stories too. So there's like imperative promoters like Vito Bruno, who, obviously predates a lot of this, but was instrumental, especially in the outlaw parties. And then you have of course, the club kids are kind of infamy, and for some people they were polarizing people to certain people in the audience. But then there's these really interesting performance artists like Leigh Bowery, whom I'm pretty fascinated with, who passed in the 90s. Nelson Sullivan too was a videographer of that time, who also passed in the 90s as well. And of course, Peter Gatien and Rudolph, who ran the Danceteria, would then also be a very pivotal club owner and purveyor. So this is me trying to get a sense of things, and I hope that you kind of get the angle that I'm coming from, and you can understand that I'm coming from a very sort of objective place, and I am just a fan and fascinated with club culture, in the live setting. I've worked as a promoter for many, many years. So I will say this too, if you haven't seen Stretch Armstrong's book, No Sleep, NYC Nightlife Flyers from 1988 to 1999, that's a great starting point too, because there is a chapter in which there's a nice cross-section of stuff that Michael Alig did in it, along with a lot of other things as far as hip-hop and house and techno and underground parties, and it's just part of the whole landscape of New York City during that time. And I think what Michael did was a big piece of that puzzle, along with a lot of other people. So this is me trying to figure out that puzzle a little bit more, from an outsider standpoint, if you will. And I went way out in Long Island and did it yesterday, in fact, from when I'm recording this. So I hope you guys get it and can dig into it a little bit to know where I'm coming from with it. And without any further ado, I think I've set this up pretty good. I'm keeping these intros are getting longer and longer, but nevertheless, check out this conversation with me and Michael Alig, and his friend Jane is with us too. So she's a part of the conversation as well. So here you go. Only here on the House List. If you like this, please subscribe on iTunes or repost it. If you have a blog or a website, or pass it around. This is pretty much a DIY thing. So here, check out my conversation. I'll see you guys on the outro. So a lot of that's something that I was pretty fascinated in too, is that, and then I guess I learned more and more as I was kind of prepping for this, was that how expansive the Outlaw parties really were. It actually was like people started that you didn't even know or affiliated with started just running with the basic concept of it, right?
We had I don't know what I was thinking, but I at one point I decided to give each one of them a name of a drug to identify them.
Right.
So this one was called LSD. One of them was called mescaline, and Patricia Field and Yo-Yo, Rebecca, her girlfriend, were at that party, and somebody had taken their picture, and it was printed in a magazine, and it said Patricia Field and Rebecca Field at the mescaline party. And she called me and said, Michael, why do you have to name these parties named after drugs? It sounds like we're at a mescaline party.
So, but are these here, are these not, most of these are yours,
yeah,
though, right?
Just not that one.
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, and I think that's where it kind of...
I can almost tell, but we're not even looking at it, just by looking at the kind of general look of the invitation. I can tell if it's mine.
Right. Yeah, so, and I want to backtrack to that too, because a lot of my interest, and really the interest in doing this little conversation, really comes from like just the whole concept and setting up of not just, I mean, the Outlaw parties are a big piece of that puzzle, but there's like so much other stuff quite literally leading up to it, in the years before that. So, and I think the kind of, to frame it, even if it was like, chronologically, I feel like it's somewhere in between like, 1988 and 1992 or 3 when the bulk of that stuff was really happening. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is. I'm so glad you brought this book because it's really, I'm really inspired now. Aren't you inspired?
Yes, I'm inspired.
Well, this is my copy, but I'll gladly give it to you. If you want,
no, I just want to glance through it before you.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely.
It's very inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, not only...
Motivating.
And not only the parties themselves, but just the
everything.
flyer
it's an exciting,
art.
It looks like you want to look at it, like go through every page. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, but I mean, like so much kind of leads up to even getting to the point of doing this. The Red Zone stuff is really like the kind of the seminal, the earliest stuff as a promoter for you, right? As far as finding a venue?
No, it goes back to Danceteria. That's the first one. So
where does that? So yeah, how does that even start as far as like just as a party promoter? Because obviously the owner of Danceteria you would work with, continuously for a long time.
Yeah, he was Rudolph. Well, he wasn't the owner; he was the director.
I see. Okay, I didn't know that.
I think I have my first party here somewhere. This is actual Cabaret Voltaire, not Rue Voltaire.
Oh wow. And these, like, you were you laying these out too, or did you have different people that you would do that did the artwork and stuff like that?
I didn't lay them out, but I would call them and tell them how to make it look.
Right. Yeah, another interesting thing that, like, going back to Project X too, was how there would always be like a full page ad for Kinko's too.
Well, the Kinko's ads were a deal that we made with Kinko's. That they would give us, I don't know if it's recording. We're recording. They would give us a discount or sometimes even free service if we gave them ads.
Oh, of course, yeah, like an ad trade, and because obviously you guys are printing a ton of it.
Yeah, we did a lot of Kinko stuff. I mean, this is all Kinko's.
Oh God, we were at Kinko's in the middle of the night.
Yeah, those 24-hour Kinko's.
Now, there's only one now. It's not actually Kinko's. What is it?
FedEx, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, those 24-hour Kinko's in New York were pretty
they were happening.
Imperative.
Yes.
They
were happening. Everybody's there.
So I know I'd like to talk to you about it too. I mean, obviously because we're here together, and Michael's like kind of gathering some stuff too. But were you working at a club before the Limelight, or did you kind of just start in the Limelight?
I started at Limelight. I was a receptionist there when I started, and then I worked my way through the different positions they
Slept her
had
way
there.
to the top.
Slept my way to the top. And Michael and I started the same month at Limelight. And by the time I left, we had to hire an in-house attorney for all the legal issues.
Wow.
That she had caused.
Wow.
That didn't sound very good. By the time I left, we had to hire a lot of lawyers for the legal issues.
So I was our attorney's assistant, among other things.
There was a lot of risk at as the parties kind of evolved. It became it was more than just
People get hurt.
DJs. Yeah.
People get hurt. People die.
Right.
We did one of those. We did a formula thing where we did like 3,000 people times 4 clubs times 5 days a week times
we
7
did
years.
very well.
And we, out of like 10 million people, like one person I think ever overdosed or died or something. So that it's kind of
Well,
it's kind of exaggerated
that's-
how many people.
That's not 100% accurate.
Well, how many people did die?
We're not going to go into the specifics.
How many people have you killed?
But how many people are reported and how many people go?
How many what?
How many people are actually reported that they died in our club, or how many people actually died in the
Well,
club?
both of them are so interesting.
Right. I mean, and that's
Are
obviously
they not
like
the same?
No,
numbers?
they're not the same.
Are they vastly different?
They are vastly different.
How vastly?
By 10.
I've never seen this person before.
Wow. Right. I mean, I worked at the Knitting Factory on Leonard Street for a few years before it closed, and I even had one casualty in the club.
the
and
Knitting Factory?
Yes, as an overdose in the bathroom, which was terrible because the show was yet to be done.
It's hard to be held responsible for what people do, maybe before they even come to your club.
Oh, yeah, this guy was only coming to hang out with the bartender. You actually wasn't
the Knitting
attending
Factory.
the show. Yeah.
This party never actually even happened because it was scheduled to happen, and then the kid fell down the elevator shaft at Danceteria.
Oh my god. 4th floor, interesting. So what was the 4th floor of the Danceteria like?
It was a kind of the VIP room, but it had a little stage.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, so you still have quite a extensive
that's my second
collection
party.
of these.
That's my first party. Yes, and this is after James St. James and Keoki raided the boxes and took what they wanted.
Oh, so there was
While I
a
was
lot have been
defenseless in jail.
So do you recall like the basic run of this, the very first one?
Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing.
So this is 85, January 3rd, 85. So it's
actually-
basically 1984.
No,
You
this was
erased
a
a couple
misprint.
bits.
This was actually 86, but they were so used to making 85 that they just kept 85. We didn't change it because nobody noticed it until
Right.
the day of the party. Oh no, I just put, and I don't know. I put some from that box in this box, and now I don't know which ones I did. Oh no! But obviously,
Are they in any kind of
well, there was
actual
one of
order?
everything in this box, and then there was bunches of everything in that box. So I don't know.
I love this. Look how cute.
I know
Yes.
he is very cute.
We miss Keoki. He's in Hawaii.
I just got this all.
How is he?
He's bored.
No, he is not. He
told me he's bored.
swims.
He told me he's
he
really
makes
bored.
Today he's bored.
Okay. Well. He said, "How is he?"
He's happy.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's great.
He's with his family.
Well, that's
He
probably a
swims.
good thing, right?
He, makes music. He eats. He's in the sun.
he
He's in
absolutely
Hawaii. How unhappy could he be?
Absolutely eats.
And he doesn't want to come back.
He's absolutely eating.
So he wasn't. You had yet to connect with him during this time, right?
Yes, I met him the month after that. That was in January.
wow.
I met him in February.
So how did you even go about approaching the
that's
club for this?
I knew enough to approach them for a party, but I didn't know what to do after the party. So after I got the date of the party,
Right.
So I booked the date of the party, and then I met with Randy and Fenton. They were a DJ duo at the time, the Fabulous Pop-Tarts. They're World of Wonder now. But they were DJs back then, and they were kind of friendly, and they wanted to sleep with me, basically. And they wanted me to have a three-way with them. And so I kind of flirted with them, and then I took them out to dinner at McDonald's, which they thought I was being ironic, but it was actually a big deal for me to take them to McDonald's because I didn't have any money, and it was expensive.
Sure.
So,
You treated.
yeah. And they told me how to that you come up with a theme, and then you have to come up with how much money it'll cost, and then you have to add something in for yourself and for the DJs. And I think I put them on there. I hired them as part of the the deal that they explained to me how to do it. I would hire them as a DJ.
And even to the point of like some of this is like you have to learn some lessons to know the invite cannot be sold or transferred.
They put that on there. Right. I just read the other stuff. Are they DJing? Are they Fabulous Pop Charts?
It doesn't look like they're on there.
Well, they did DJ. I don't know.
So I mean, even from the jump, it's like these are more than.
But
just...
I mean, this is. I can't even believe that they booked this. I mean, it's not a party. I mean, this isn't a party. A go-go international food party. It's not even a party. We wouldn't even book this now at Outrage, and we're desperate.
What is that?
That was my second party.
So where's the food?
Rudolph booked
What's
it because
the food
he liked the name. He liked how it sounded. Go-go international food party. He thought it was funny.
What does that mean?
I know. Well, the idea was that we would have tables set up.
Free delicacies from around the world.
Yeah, we would have the go-go dancer on the table dancing in a style reminiscent of the food from Thailand or the food from. So we had.
Did you actually do that?
We had fortune cookies from China, and we had whatever, and then we had the Chinese go-go dancer.
So
we put more effort into that than we would do now.
So was it that they started you up they would give you the floor because it's a little easier to fill, or how did you work your way to the main?
No, that was my second party.
Right.
He did that. I know now.
Right.
He did it because the club. To me, I just moved to New York, and so that club seemed very cool, and the people who were there seemed cool to me. But that was because I was from Indiana. So
sure. New York is a very exotic place.
What I didn't know was that Danceteria was already on its way out. It was not fabulous anymore. The cool people did not go there anymore. So he hired me because I felt that it was cool. And he thought that I would be enthusiastic about promoting it because I didn't know any better, and because my friends were all as young as I was. They were all 18 and going to college, and so we were all new people. So it was a way of bringing new people in.
Of course, which is very enticing.
Yeah.
So where did it go from here? It's just trial and error at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, they both did very well, and then very well, probably like 300 or 400 people, which is very well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, even to this day,
to me, it seemed kind of like I didn't understand why it was so difficult to do this, because it's a weekend night and you're offering them free admission and free drinks. I mean, if I can't fill the room in New York City offering free admission and free drinks, we better get a different business.
Yeah, and it looks like even a lot. It's funny going over those flyers too. So many of them, it was the open bar and the two comps, were standard. Right?
They were for the time. They're not standard now. No, there's two. I'm saying Jen because there's two of these.
I understand.
It's like I don't. The whole world is topsy turvy. That was standard back then. I mean, now can you imagine? I didn't even get an open bar for my birthday. I mean. I don't know what the kids are doing nowadays.
It's not what the kids are doing.
And I had a dinner. Yeah, I had a dinner party the night of my birthday. I invited people. They came expecting to pay at a dinner party.
To pay, to split the bill, amongst one another.
Yeah.
I think that that's very nice that your friends are willing to pay.
They
did not have to.
No, I know. I know. I tried to break them of that awful habit.
So going. Kind of getting back to this too. I mean, it's great that that's like an official post on an envelope. So how did that from the Danceteria? When did you realize that you could actually go to something a little more contemporary for the time?
When that kid fell down the elevator shaft, and I had to go to Limelight. So I moved to that party.
Had you been there by that time?
This is interesting. We started at the same time.
See, this is an anecdote for the book. There are two of these invitations because I moved this party to Limelight. So there's this one, and then there's the Limelight one, and you'll see the difference of the.
How much time was in between? Was it like a matter of?
I just went right next door and said, "Quick, somebody died, gotta book it."
Right. So how did the two of you guys?
Oh, Jane.
I'm sorry. I don't remember exactly how we met. I can remember he used to drive me crazy, and he still does.
Jane, we're going to take all these invitations out and go through the box.
As I said, he drives me crazy. He would come in my office and pee in my garbage can, things like that.
Wow.
I feel like Joan Crawford looking through the... what is this? Doing it.
Yeah, I mean, we can take it, one show at a time, but we don't. I mean, this is crazy too because I wouldn't have expected that you would have such a, an
Well,
account.
then you obviously don't know me very well. Oh, I had so much more than this. This is like nothing.
So the Limelight,
James St. James and Keoki got wind of these boxes. Started going through them, selling everything.
Oh, so
Probably for drug money.
What was the story with the cards? Because this is a pretty like inventive tool for
We're doing those again. We're doing
nice.
those in a couple of weeks. We're going to start that up.
Oh, and this is your
Ernie.
co-host,
Yes, of the Pew.
which you shoot here too.
We're going to shoot on Friday.
Oh, nice. How did that come? Well, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I mean, this guy you've known too for quite a long time as well, right?
Yes, I met him when I first moved to New York. Something's going on here, Jane.
Maybe you put two of
That's what I
everything.
needed.
I think you put two of everything.
Yeah, I met him at one of Suzanne's parties, and he was at that time, I think he was the smartest person I'd ever met. He was like a book smart and also street smart, and he had his shtick was that he glued different things to his face,
Right.
mustache, all the time, and it would sometimes be radiator tubes or anything.
You did like the pipe cleaners
Yeah,
and stuff, right?
yeah, and it was, I thought, a creative. I was attracted to people who glue things to their faces, and he was smart on top of that.
Smart,
So,
attractive,
people who glue things to-
charming,
Oh,
sincere.
all right, this is proof. If ever there was proof needed.
Be quiet. Probably one of the most real club people I had met in Clubland. Ernie Glam was
He seems
real,
pretty down to
very
earth
real.
in a way, right? Is that
And you know who's up there with him? Shockingly, Amanda.
Really?
Yeah.
So Suzanne though, she's obviously like a pretty
She's down there. She's down. On the bottom.
but I mean, going back to how you guys met at that time, she was like a pretty influential
Oh no,
promoter
she's
in New
still
York.
and
Yes.
she's still that.
Oh, I know.
I thought you meant as far as real people. No.
Now, in the context of like New York City club promoters and sort of show organizers, I mean, that was probably one of the first few people that you would see that was
Suzanne?
doing something that would.
Well, not back then. She didn't start until she started with Savage. That was like in 87 or 88.
Oh, okay.
She actually, people don't know this, but Peter brought her over from London. She was living in London. He had a Limelight in London, and so he knew her from there. And he brought her to New York. He was having an affair with her, and he paid for her to relocate and be near him.
Oh, and as a byproduct of that, she was doing.
She
stuff.
said, "Oh, anytime you need me, Peter, I'll be there for you. Anything I can do, don't hesitate to ask." But then every time we asked her to do something, she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, it just wouldn't work out." Or, I'd love to do it, but it just wouldn't work out.
So who would you say?
But I'd really love to. Next time you need me, just ask me.
But I mean,
Yeah, she started actually in fashion. She had a clothing store in Soho, and she brought over Peter brought over Leigh Bowery and all these other kind of cool London designers, and she had a little scene happening in her store.
Yeah.
And that's from there came the parties.
So what? I mean, there's so much. I mean, even just looking at the flyers is a little overwhelming because it's
A little overwhelming. I'm
triggering.
floundering here.
It's triggering a lot
sea
of
of
questions.
You really need to calm down. Get them
Floundering.
organized another
Let me
time.
let me
This
see
doesn't have
this
to be
one.
the moment.
I'm floundering. Would you be flounder? Like a fish?
So some of these were other people's things too, because obviously
Yes.
International
Yes.
Climax Control that was
Yes.
someone else. Yeah.
Yes.
So were you? I mean, at least at one point, and I mean, it even looks back like when you look at the column in Project X, Club Rub, that you were still like even at that time, especially in the earlier issues too, where you were like a fan and a sort of a purveyor of other people's
Oh
stuff
God, yeah,
too, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because that's not that story itself isn't really like told very specifically in any way. So, and me, I didn't grow up in New York during that period of time, and I wasn't at those. In fact, like when I got to New York, formally, I mean, I moved to New York in '98, but I was.
You missed everything.
Yeah, and then by the time I got to the Limelight, it was called the Avalon. So
A pre-Halloween hullabaloo.
Who did Avalon? Was that
Stephen Edelman.
Stephen Edelman.
Oh.
How he ended up with that building, I'll never know.
Because he was the last.
He was
Obviously they were desperate, and he was the last one around.
I think the Avalon was only around for a couple of years as well.
Which I'm surprised it lasted that long under his tutelage.
So going like
I think he's going to hear this interview.
Steve Edelman, he'll know what we think of him.
He knows.
He's not that interesting.
I think he knows.
so this was the big one right here too, right?
I think that people have a mistaken idea of how big it was because the invitation seems to me it wasn't really.
Well, yeah.
The bigger ones there were bigger ones than that.
Right. Looking at the 1990 changing of the guard, which of course is in.
Party. They're getting a little bit more contextually. They're like more together.
Right.
It's more of a party. This one makes more sense.
Yeah, I mean these were all like this is going back to the Danceteria too.
That was
the raffle of the century.
And this was, I think, the fourth one. My date auction. I auctioned off my friend.
We're going to do that again.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe we should do that this week.
I think that.
Oh, but I won't be here.
Really?
I mean, maybe. I don't know if I have to go.
So this is at Outrage now, which is the current thing, right? Mm-hmm. So what's the room? That's just the name of the party. What's the room, or is it like a?
Room.
Okay, it's not like a roving type of thing, right? How long have you guys? This is what you guys work on it together. Mm-hmm. How long has that been going on?
A year, surprisingly.
Yeah. It's at 249 Eldridge Street.
Yes.
Amazing. And how did that even fall into place? I mean, was it just...
Keoki was working on it first. Keoki, Kenobi, and James. Is that who was doing it? And it was called like Fuck Mondays or I Hate Mondays. Or it had a lot of sort of heavy names, not very happy. Yeah, it was a little dark.
And it was called Exile, and he was wondering why he was the only person there.
Right. And it was a Monday night.
Exile.
Which is infamously hard to make work.
Mondays are, one of the hardest, if not the hardest.
I mean, traditionally, Monday night is the night where all people who work in clubs go out because they're not working.
Right.
So usually you have sort of the in-house people who work.
He has the Knox Landing in now.
I like that. Spelling is perfect.
But Keoki started it, and it was fledgling, and Keoki's really into music.
Yes.
He loves his music. He really is passionate about the music. Not really interested in promoting. Not really interested in people at all.
Well, yeah, in the classic sense of like a lot of club DJs are more focused on just being the DJ. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a couple of people to put it all together, right?
So it was not going forward without some help. And Michael came along and
got that sucker rolling.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's kind of an interesting, like, almost a full circle thing, that you guys have been doing this now for so long, and that you can restart a party.
Yeah,
and it's been going okay.
Could use all we would need party ideas. There's like 1,000 of them here. Nobody will remember any of this stuff. We're the only ones who survive.
I'm sure you could reinvent some of these.
Yeah,
for sure. I'd love to know too when you first connected with Vito Bruno, because he obviously was instrumental in some of the.
I just called him and said that I wanted to. I wanted to know why he didn't do Outlaw parties anymore, because they were really exciting, and the most exciting things I'd seen in New York, and I was sad that he wasn't doing them anymore, and I wanted to know why.
What were the ones that he had did that you had attended? Do you remember?
The West Side, the ramp on the West Side Highway.
Yeah.
The unused part on top.
Mm.
And that was a kind of a famous one. It was a party for Noel, the singer.
Yes. Because he did a lot of the freestyle artists.
Yeah. He managed a lot of free, and Noel performed Silent Morning there, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. That was the reason I moved to New York for stuff like that. I didn't even know what it was, but that idea was why I moved to New York.
Yeah.
And I said that the fact that he's not doing them anymore is really depressing for me, and he's kind of like ruining New York for me. So can he please start doing that again? And he said that he would love to, but he is too busy. He has become very successful as a record producer, and
that's right.
didn't have any time to do it. So he said he would love to do it if all he had to do was just like maybe give an idea and then show up that night. So I said, well, okay, so give me the idea, tell me where you want it, and then I'll set it up, and then all you have to do is show up. So he thought that was a great idea. So the first few Outlaw parties I did, and also because I wanted to call them Outlaw parties, I couldn't really do that morally or ethically without his stamp of approval. So
sure.
He helped. We did the first few together, and kind of blended me into it so that I could continue on doing it after he stopped.
So yeah, I mean, you got his blessing, and then it sort of worked like that. This is one right here, right?
Yeah.
So which one is that? That's the Tiny Tim one.
Uh-huh.
So
I mean, this committee is like, if they were at a party, it would be a great party.
Yeah, so break this down too, because this is also something you don't see on any kind of shows anymore
and
parties. So you call it a committee. I'm basically looking at this Outlaw 91 #1 was a Project X and Fad magazine, which I don't know Fad magazine. I don't remember that one.
That was Gina Davis from Los Angeles.
Really?
Yeah.
So now there's like probably 100 people's names on the flyer. So this is basically, these are like invited guests, right?
And a flyer is a little card that you get at the grocery store for 50% off of the
Use
laundry detergent.
invites.
It's an invitation.
Right. So,
everybody calls them flyers.
But so essentially with I know, an invite, because this does enable whoever's on this list to bring a guest with them.
Uh-huh.
But outside of that, how do you can't really control people that show up that aren't listed here.
I know.
But it's to stoke people out.
You can't.
In fact, you want them to show up.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yes, of course.
You want them to want that invite.
So at this point in time, too, like, do you go physically to each one of these people and give them this? Like,
I'd probably give them 10 or 20 each.
Oh, I see. Yes. So who was instrumental in reaching out to Tiny Tim?
Well, that was John Carmen. He was a publicist at Limelight. We had a party for John, for Tiny Tim at Limelight on the Wednesday before that, the day before that.
Right.
So he was in town. And I don't know why the Outlaw party was on Thursday, not Wednesday. We must have needed him for something else on Thursday. He probably performed at Limelight again on Thursday. That's what it was. We had a big party for him on Wednesday night, and then he performed at Limelight on Thursday, but we figured that nobody would come to that performance because they were all at the Wednesday party. So we had an Outlaw party on Thursday to trick them into going to the Outlaw party. And then once they're out, we say, oh, now everybody go to Limelight too.
Right. Oh, because they were back to backs.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did he? Did he played his good? He played his little.
He played
guitar?
his ukulele.
Yeah, ukulele, of course. Yeah. Did you guys have a conversation?
Video. It's on YouTube.
Oh, nice.
He hung out. He's very cool.
He was. He got it. Like the.
He's very cool because he's not successful. All the very cool people are not successful.
Right. He got what you guys were trying to do with that.
Yeah.
Nice.
He's a very odd character. He certainly has some
he's
strange idiosyncrasies.
Yes, but he's in on a joke. I mean, he's not like completely out there, like isn't aware of.
He realizes that he is interesting.
Well, yeah. I mean, at that time too. I mean, he was doing all those late night appearances too, and people they obviously were attracted to him, for that.
Mm-hmm.
Another person I'm super. Not infatuated with, but I'm very interested in, and they were a big part of it. I think too was Leigh Bowery too. So what? And that seems like that Leigh was involved with a bunch of stuff over the years, right?
Yeah,
intermittently, or
I mean, as far as I know, I was the only one bringing. I mean, I know that Suzanne brought him over a couple of times for her store, but as far as club appearances, I think I was the only one maybe they could afford to bring him over because it was expensive. But I would always find clever ways of paying for it. Like the time that we went on the Joan Rivers show, I had her fly him to New York and pay for all the hotels and everything, so the club didn't have to pay for it.
Right. So he'd be there for a couple extra days, and
Yeah.
you could squeeze in an appearance. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was cool with that. Sure.
He was. Except one night, we had 4 clubs. So
Right. For the people that might be unfamiliar, which there will be, like, can you just break that down?
Yeah, we at that time we were running the 4 largest clubs in the city, Tunnel, USA, Palladium, and Limelight, and so because of that, we were able to, on this particular time, we were able to split the cost of bringing Leigh over into 4 parcels, so that we could have a party for him Wednesday at Limelight, Thursday at Tunnel, Friday at USA, and Saturday, and so I had him show up on each night, and each time collect a certain amount of money.
Right.
And before he left, he said something that was a little upsetting to me, because it was very difficult for me to figure out how to pay the cost of bringing him over, and for the club. So I did it like that, and then I had Joan Rivers pay for stuff, and he said, maybe the next time I come over, you won't have me crawling to Limelight for a quarter and running over the Palladium for another nickel, and and
I mean, it is, as a promoter, I mean, you kind of have to figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah.
And if he had an exorbitant
And I mean,
cost,
nobody else was bringing him over, and we had made kind of a deal that that he would kind of promote me in London to his group, and that I would do the same in New York.
Did you go to London?
No, because we had a bit of a falling out over the design of the bathrooms at USA when we were building at the club. I wanted him to design the bathrooms at the club, and he wouldn't give me his idea until we cut him a check. And I said that was insulting, because what if we don't like the idea? And then we were not going to do it. And he said he didn't care. He wanted the money. And if we didn't like the idea, we could not do it. But he still wanted to be paid for the idea, which didn't make any sense to me.
Right.
And I said, when Peter said, tell him that when I go to Barney's, I don't say, here's $150, give me whatever shirt you have. I say, how much I like that shirt, how much is it? And they say it's $150. And he said, well, tell Mr. Gatien that when he goes to Bowery's, there are no shirts on the rack. And the first thing you must do is write a check to the proprietor in the amount of $10,000.
Amazing. Yeah, but still yet such a brilliant
yes,
performance
I could
artist.
Forgive him for his eccentricities, because he was a genius.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff that, the average person in the audience doesn't really take into account for. I mean, when it comes to booking someone at that level of, that's that eccentric, too, you know. So for there to be 4 shows, were they all different kinds of performances? Or were they, would he just walk, just walk on stage?
At Limelight, we didn't even plan what he was going to do, and neither did he, until he walked in the door. And then he's like, now what do I do? And I was like, I don't know. So we gave him a lamp, and I told him that we would play some very big orchestral setup music, and have him come on, and then turn the lamp on. And come on stage and turn the lamp on, and then that would be that. So he did that.
Amazing.
$2,000.
Every penny.
Yeah.
What's this record right here? Is this a record that you guys...
It's an invitation.
Oh, amazing. And it would play, too, of course.
Yeah, it's a recording. Kenny made it, actually. Imagine him doing something like that now. He ran around with a tape recorder and a microphone and, had all my friends say something, and then he mixed it into a song.
Incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. How many of those do you think you guys pressed up?
Probably 5,000.
Nice. Yeah. There was a record that I stumbled across a record that you were on. There was a 12-inch from a group. You know what I'm talking about? It was the lesbian
Waterbed or something.
Yeah, lesbian waterbed. Yes. I've never heard it. I know that it exists.
Yeah, it absolutely exists.
It's just like a house track that you're do the intro on or something?
No, it's a whole. It's all I say is the song is, I think, called X, or X is best or something. And then that's all. It's X is best. Put it to the test or whatever. And then they just make me play it over and over.
Is that a big club record?
No.
Gabriel is insisting 30 minutes. He wants invite for this week, but for the newsletter.
Oh.
I said that we don't have anything yet.
What are we going to do?
We're going to have a karaoke auction.
Oh my God.
I would love to spend a little bit of time talking about the magazine, if that's possible, just because it's another thing where, thank God you have the website, because it's such a great database.
I think we're missing one on the...
Yeah, you're missing issue 2.
Yeah, Rudolph has it. And we just haven't gotten around to putting it. Actually, he sent us all of it. We just haven't put it up yet.
Is he live in New York? Is he?
He's in Brazil.
Okay.
He has 15 clubs.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea. That's amazing.
I know.
Think
keeping. I didn't either at work. One of them.
It's such a rich kind of story of this period of New York club life too, because as the zine sort of evolves out of a zine into kind of more like a glossy magazine that has like multiple page fashion spreads.
Can you believe that Swatch and Calvin Klein agreed to advertise?
Major advertisers.
They obviously
Absolute
were not looking at the magazine.
Right.
They obviously made the decision looking at the cover and never looked at the magazine.
So essentially it started as like Rudolph basically put money into it, and it was you and Julie Jules. So she was the editor and you were the co-editor.
It was actually a game to see how much we could get away with before they would say something.
It seemed like you had it was pretty free form. Was there must have been stuff that would eventually have to be taken out after.
Yeah, we had to stop making the drug ads. We had a different ad for a different drug every issue. And all references to kiddie porn and that kind of stuff taken out. And the instructional manuals on how to chew crystal meth and that kind of stuff gone. The step-by-step how to run away from home and how to hide drugs from your parents and, all that stuff. Couldn't take it out.
So what was
basically everything that made the magazine interesting and different from other magazines we had to take out.
Yeah, because if you look at it as it turns more into the almost to the mid-90s, it becomes like it's interesting because the scene itself is turning more towards like as rave culture becomes a little more commercialized and actualized, as well as like it's like that 90s fashion boom where that industry is just like at its biggest. That's even changed dramatically too, just the fashion industry to now compared to then. But it's so reflective in what you guys are writing, and especially what's in Club Rub. So I would love to talk about Club Rub a little bit.
James, I really had intended James to write it because I knew that he was a funny writer. He's a very funny writer. And but the problem with James is that, like the problem with a lot of smart people, that smart drug addicts, that he either didn't have enough drugs to write it, or he had too many drugs and he was too high. So he would say, I can't write it unless you give me some K. And then I would get him K and he'd say, I can't write it, I'm in a K-hole. And it went back and forth like that. And I could never find like the right spot where he could do things.
But you were, so out of default, you had to run with it. Yeah. Yeah, because if you read it, it's really great writing. It's as far as nightlife reporting goes too, which is an art in itself. Obviously, scene writing is has a rich history in New York City as well. You take into account, of course, the Village Voice, but Paper Magazine and
I
Details.
was more inspired by like the Luella Parsons and like the what's her name, Hedda Hopper and all that kind of gossipy stuff.
Yes, yeah, which it kind of embodies too, but it's so tongue in cheek when it comes to like certain. There's like you were calling out like Clint Eastwood and like some of these.
We were trying to get them to sue us because we wanted the attention that a lawsuit would bring. So we said that Elizabeth Taylor was a lesbian pedophile, that she trolls public bathrooms at rest stops and inject kids with drugs and bring them home, and, like all kinds of stuff. And nobody would ever sue us.
Never in all of those years was there a lawsuit.
We did. We got one cease and desist, but it was from a children's television workshop. Because
oh my gosh! Yes, I remember that.
We had you made an ad for Disco 2000 that said "The gang's all here," and it was Big Bird, Cookie Monster, and Oscar the Grouch.
Oh, so you took the likeness of the beloved Sesame Street characters.
Yes. But we said that Lynch Evangelista was a heroin addict, and the Elizabeth Taylor thing, and then we said, I don't know, we were just using names of celebrities to hopefully attract their attention and get them to sue us.
Well, it's interesting too because as like the '90s would roll on to, you have like magazines like Vice that would then turn into this mega corporate, industry that sort of really got their start with that style of journalism.
And I actually hosted the party for Vice when they had their first issue.
Really?
Yeah, it was at Disco 2000.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
What year was that?
90, early 90s, maybe mid-90s.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I know
Jane, I'm actually finding 3 of some of these.
I'm sorry. I know it's distressing.
To set the scene just a little bit too, because I don't know, my listeners might be a little disoriented too, because
Why do you have a lot of drug addicted listeners?
There's some, I'm sure. It's a wide range, but we are looking at thousands of flyers from the invitations. I'm sorry, I apologize. The jargon evolved over the years, This is quite literally Meat Puppets, not the band The Meat Puppets. This is you would have.
Meat Puppets.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting. So
You know
yes.
Who doesn't know the Meat Puppets?
I don't know. Most people I would think.
So what was your how much stuff did you do at the World? Because that too kind of falls into that realm too.
Yeah, I did a lot at the World. The World was after Danceteria closed with the World. Right. This is a perfect example of the difference between then and now. This party would never happen today. Just reading the description of the party on the invitation, nobody would make it through that.
Yeah.
The description is. This is, first of all, it's a rock drama. It's kind of an opera based upon it's called The Last Words of Dutch Schultz. Dutch Schultz was a kind of an anti-hero. He was arrested for something in New York, and
he's like a famous gangster.
Yeah, and he was taken down by the police. And I guess his last words were, I don't know, they were immortalized in this opera. And born Arthur Flemingheimer in 1901, Dutch Schultz grew from a teenage hoodlum in the Bronx to one of the most feared gangsters in the 1930s. A bootlegger and racketeer famed for his ruthless tactics, the Dutchman schemed to assassinate Thomas Dewey, the U.S. Attorney for New York. But his criminal associates, thinking this bad for business, murdered Dutch on October 29, 1934, at the Palace Chop House in Newark. His last words, as reported by the police stenographer, are the inspiration for The Last Words of Dutch Schultz, featuring Michael Clarke, John Collins, Mick Farron, and so they made a play over his last words, and people were actually into it, and they knew what that was, and they
wow.
And this was just like a regular night at a club,
Right. Was there must have been music at some point in time. I mean, people are just, at this point in time, they'll just go because they know that it's going to be some hyper entertainment right there. Right?
I guess they found that entertaining. I mean, even I don't find that entertaining, and I like a lot of weird stuff. But
who was Public Halo? Do you remember these people?
No.
At the time, there must have been, countless different
I know Michael Clarke.
Promoters, though.
Michael Clarke. That's my fake name.
That's right.
And that's where I got it too.
Is it really?
The first time I was ever arrested was at an Outlaw party, and I didn't want to have a record, and they were arresting me for public, whatever, nuisance or whatever. And Clarke is also James St. James, his last name. Mm-hmm. So I said that I was Michael Clarke, and they believed me. And so now, whenever I'm arrested, they think I'm Michael Clarke, and because my social security number is attached to it, and they think that Michael Alig is an alias. So
interesting.
I was arrested in Texas a while ago, and I couldn't leave the state. I couldn't even get out of jail because they wouldn't believe that I was Michael Alig. They didn't have any ID saying I was Michael Alig.
Really?
Yeah.
Bizarre.
I know. Yeah. And they kept, and they were the lady the sergeant, she's like, Mr. Clarke, we've been awfully good to you since you've been here. Have we mistreated you in any way? Is there a reason that you would have to lie to us about who you are?
And yet still.
And they called me Michael Clarke the minute I walked out.
So when did you stop working at the Limelight?
When the DEA came knocking.
And that was it? Did you go on to anywhere else afterwards? Did you stay in that role?
I went to culinary school. I became a chef, opened a catering company, worked in fancy 4-star restaurants around New York.
Nice. So you had a second career after that.
I've had second, third, fourth. So yeah,
that's good. Yeah, that's awesome.
But somehow we can't get away from each other. We always come back together.
All these damn invitations.
How many of these do you think you were at? Probably a good fair share of them?
I was so much more back of the house than front of the house. I mean, I got to have fun sometimes.
You were really working in the office. Right?
Yeah, or running around the club, getting money from bars, back to the office, making sure that the
drugs are all there.
Yeah, making sure that everything was running smoothly, making sure everybody had what they needed.
Would you
making
settle?
Sure the fire marshal wasn't going to shut us down.
Well,
that
that's imperative.
Yeah.
Would you settle with artists at the end of the night? How would
we
typically
would hand him envelopes and he would go and take care of it.
Yeah. So at the end of any
and Michael was very good. He always made sure people got paid.
Always.
No one will ever say that Michael.
In fact, when I was arrested, Lady Bunny said that in the media. She said, "I wanted to go on record saying that whenever I worked for Michael, he's always made sure I've been paid, and I have a feeling that everybody will say the same."
Yeah.
Oops.
It's true.
Yeah. That's as a promoter. I mean, that's all you can really do. You have to assure people that, if anything.
Well, I certainly know promoters who will put budgets into the club for X amount for this person and then take a little out of the envelope.
Oh,
sure,
they
that's
pay
possible.
the person. So Michael was always honest enough.
This was a label for a bottle of beer. It went like that around the bottle. So James had his own beer brand.
Well, that was a Red Zone flyer.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, Red Zone for a while definitely was thriving before the people were going to the Limelight too, though, right? I mean, that existed more initially as a disco club, right?
Red Zone?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was 88 and 89.
Yeah. Oh, it was that short-lived of a place? It wasn't open long?
If you'll notice the dates on these invitations, most of these places lasted about a year.
Right. As they do, just like the building, for example, which just kind of, they had their photo exhibit thing, which you're featured in. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your experience with the building? Did you do anything? Did you do events there?
I did. Keoki and I did Saturdays there until Peter Gatien
got jelly.
asked us to change our plans.
To stop, because you were kind of out of his
basically what
network.
He did was at that time I was only doing Disco 2000 at Limelight. He wanted me to do the whole week. So
was in the whole week?
Like,
at each different club?
Well, no, we only had Limelight at that point.
Right,
It was in the beginning. And Limelight was still terrible every night except Wednesdays. But when the success of Wednesdays showed him that it was possible to revamp the club entirely. So he wanted to do the rest of the week what we did on Wednesdays. But in order to do that, I would have had to quit the building. So he asked me to take everybody who was working at the building and offer them higher salary to come work at Limelight, which is kind of a gross thing to do. And you don't really do that. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, it's kind of poaching another club.
But Howard Schaefer was the owner of the building. He was aware that his club wasn't going to last much longer because he was having trouble with neighbors and it just wasn't making any money, and a lot of reasons he was going to close anyway. So I spoke to him and I asked him if there was a way that we could do this amicably without, hurting people's egos and drama causing money and everything. So he went along with it, and we offered people jobs. We ended up basically doubling everybody's salaries, and I knew this was going to happen because it always happens in this situation, but they were going to come. I knew they'd come to Limelight and accept our money, but hate us because we were responsible in their eyes for squashing out squashing out all the other clubs and kind of bringing everybody into the Peter Gatien machine. Yes, and so they would work for us, but begrudgingly, and spit on us as they take their money.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about, this is like bar staff, club staff.
Yeah, like barman and DJs,
right?
Bartender, yeah.
Yeah, what I find kind of interesting too, and when you start thinking of like places like the building, and then of course like the tunnel and the Palladium and the Limelight as well, is that how on the other stuff that was going on the nights where you didn't have events, and how I think the building is a good example.
But there were events every night. I mean, there were events every night.
Yeah, you had events every night, but not in every single room. So I'm talking about just
but there were other events in the other rooms with.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, multiple rooms, of course. Yeah. So there's like while you're doing evolving what you're doing, there's like all these other kind of other scenes that are thriving in the same rooms. I mean, especially like the house and hip hop DJs of that era, where you're kind of sharing all these nights, and a lot of people from that community, the DJs and fans and stuff, like have this totally different relationship with these venues, especially like the Tunnel, which is like a notorious hip hop club, but you guys were doing just as much shit at the Tunnel as well. Wow.
Well, the Tunnel hip hop thing was only on Sundays.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But even like the Palladium too would have big hip hop shows as well.
Toward the end, they
We
did.
would have Wu-Tang Clan. We had some big shows like that.
In the end of a club's kind of lifespan.
The hip hop eventually starts happening. I mean, especially in a New York setting.
It's a progression. There's a certain progression that you have to go through. It can't go the other way. It goes like A-list and then B-list, C-list, D-list, and then hip-hop. And then once it's in hip-hop, it can actually be revamped into an A-list again.
Right.
And that was
cool. People start going to it again.
That was the whole... It's like the lifestyle of a maggot turning into a fly. That was the idea of having 4 clubs, was that we could go A-list, B-list, C-list, D-list, and then go in a circle.
I see. So you could simultaneously run... They could cycle through... But the building, it seemed like, from what I gather, now I didn't go to the building either, so I'm coming to this with a little bit of naivete about it, because I just wasn't there in the moment. But that sort of all started, the hip-hop and the A-list stuff, and it all kind of started simultaneously there.
Yeah, and that was a good blending of all that, because at the time, hip-hop was... In its origin, in its beginnings, hip-hop was not anything like it is now.
Of course.
Was actually very gay-friendly and tolerant, and there are a lot of gay people involved in hip-hop.
You forget that there is still underground hip-hop, and you really don't know enough about it.
But that's all hip-hop was back then. Stop doing what that kid did.
Right, but no, I agree with you too, and that especially in 1990 and 91, where like when you have groups like the Jungle Brothers and stuff too, that would have like these the
Jungle Brothers. What are you trying to say?
You're crazy, Michael.
But if you go back to those early issues of Project X too, when they were, you actually had DJ charts in that magazine, which is pretty amazing if you go back to it.
Yeah.
Because there's so much other shit in the magazine
and
too.
It seems like so like antiquated, like DJ charts. Like, who has time to compile their top 10 songs?
No, but they're great. It's a great time capsule too, because in the first couple issues,
we buried a time capsule in the courtyard of Limelight. There's a time capsule buried there somewhere.
Is there?
Mm-hmm.
It must be under the building.
No, it's in the...
There's a courtyard on the side of the building.
Right. Does that still exist, even with the mall and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's all...
What's in it, do you think?
The exterior of the building is a landmark, so it can never be changed.
Right.
Ever.
That's right.
Ever.
Never, ever.
I spent lots of money on those
You had
stained
the
glass
bushes
windows.
and the bushes. You had to keep the bushes at a certain... I mean, like...
Yeah, we really were... We were kept to a standard.
And we were good at it. We did a very good job of it.
Yeah.
Until they kicked it out. Now the place is crumbling.
How was the tunnel for you when you were doing the tunnel stuff, like compared to the Limelight? I mean, did it have a similar kind of impact you feel in the moment?
Yes. Which tunnel are you talking about? The first tunnel or the second tunnel?
Well, which one do you think you probably? I mean, you were just as active in both rooms, right?
Yeah.
So was it different nights in both?
Yeah. So sometimes the same night. I like to encourage people to go club hopping. This was called the Great Outdoors. We spent like $150,000 on this party.
So break it all down. How did that come about?
Well,
Can you believe we used to be able to spend...
I know.
Remember we had budgets with money?
I wanted the place to look... I wanted the inside to look like the outside. So we got like 150 trees, big trees from way upstate New York, and we brought them down in trucks and put them all over the dance floor and put sod on the floors, and so it was grass, and I mean it was really, really cool.
That's
and
amazing.
we had a babbling brook and a bridge that went over it, and
David
ranger
Morales
station.
was the ranger at the ranger station. So that's pretty incredible. And people, they got it. I mean,
even the invitation is so well thought out, and the wording on it is just like, so well done.
Was this this was just one night? Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So who was this?
Eric Good. He was the person that he was one of the owners of Area, the club,
right.
which was kind of I think the gold standard of what I want nightclubs to be. So we hired in true Peter Gatien form, if he could, because Peter was always jealous of Area because Area was much cooler than Limelight could ever be, and so
because there was a time when Limelight was not cool at all.
Well, if you go back to those Project X too, and
we always made
you
fun
would
of
diss it like
they hated us. They hated us.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
So even when they hired us, they hated us. But what was oh yeah, Peter was jealous of Area, so he knew he could never be as cool as Eric could, but he also knew that he could buy him. So, and Eric is very cool, but he doesn't have any money. Like cool people don't have any money. Right. So Eric knew that he needed money, so he had to be nice to Peter, and Peter gave him a lot of money, and then we did this together. We did the decor.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, so did you go into Area at all?
Yeah, I went to Area all the time.
Did you do stuff
and
there?
Peter hated. I would try to say, at Area they have, and in Area they do open bar, and I would do that with all the whatever cool club is happening right then, and then he would say, well, where's Area and Danceteria and all the other clubs that you say are so cool? Why aren't they around now? Maybe if they were a little less cool, they'd be around now.
So Peter Gatien, he ended up taking over the magazine too, right?
Because it was too cool.
So that was another sort of a scenario where he basically bought it out or bought into it.
He wants to own everything and everyone.
Yeah. Before the meeting, we went into a meeting with him, and Jewel is my partner. She said, "Should I sleep with him?"
I would love to talk just a bit more too about the kind of run of outlaw parties that you did specifically. And I know some of these have been talked about quite a bit.
Actually.
Oh wow, beautiful. When was how did it conclude?
Oh, this is the opening for Tunnel, a puzzle, a different piece. Each piece got you into a different part of the club.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, this was like you had another puzzle thing as well, birthday
so
one.
You noticed that, huh?
Yeah.
But one was shrink wrapped and the other one was, they're both the same puzzle, but one was shrink wrapped.
Yeah, this one right here.
Yeah. They're both the same puzzle actually, but different printing, and one was shrink wrapped.
What was the story with this dude, Junkie Jonathan? What was the deal with that?
He's a fun-loving, clean-living kind of guy.
Oh yeah, with a name like that.
Yeah.
His name suited him. He suited his name.
So he would just be like he wasn't organizing. He couldn't possibly be
anything. We organized and just put his name on it.
And did he even come?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
With his eyes closed. He would come to the club with two guys carrying him, like with one arm over his shoulder, and they'd have to bring him in and then plop him down, and then he would make drug deals all night long without opening his eyes. I don't know how we would do that.
That's called the functioning addict.
Yeah. This was a magazine that I'd always wanted to do back then, but I didn't get a chance to do it until 2 years ago when I came home because it was complicated and I never had my act together enough. I wanted to have a magazine called Tonight that we would have photographers and reporters roving around our clubs, and we would have a template, and then they would take pictures and do a fashion story and who's wearing what and who's showing the costume and everything, and then plug everything in and then have it all ready, printed and collated and stapled to hand out as you leave the club, so that you have an instant magazine that happens, which is what happened tonight.
Right.
And the tagline is all the news you already knew you needed to know then. And this was the prototype, and we did it the night of my art show, which was in 3 different galleries, and we had reporters and photographers running from each place, and then they put it all together, and then they did it and had it ready by 4 o'clock.
Where did they print? How could they possibly have printed it?
We
on
had
the premises?
it was a Xerox machine
right.
in a color, so we just did it and
nice.
Who's in, who's out.
So still quite an inventive idea. I'm glad that you were able to do that.
Yeah, but I wanted to do it every day. I wanted it to be daily, a nightly thing.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's kind of like if only it could have been done back then in the era of print.
It's always if only, if only.
Right.
My whole life is if only. When we were doing Tunnel, Tunnel had offered every possible thing you could imagine a nightclub would offer. We had a designer DJ booth. Dolce & Gabbana designed the DJ booth. We had, and it was always like, oh my God, Peter, if only we could have a designer DJ booth, if only we could get Dolce & Gabbana to design the DJ, then we'll be cool. And then we'd get that, and they'd say, oh my God, Peter, we need a game show. If only we had a game show in the back of the club, then we'll be cool. He paid like $50,000 to build this game show set that was like, kind of like match game, where you had like, and the theme was pee and poop and toilets, and you had 3 outhouses that the contestants stood in, and they like had and it was fixed that you press a button, and then it went, and then the one who, it was very hard to make it so that after when you push one, you turn the other 2 off, so that the only one can do it. And they had sound effects and big spinning wheels and flashing lights, and I mean, it was really, really cool.
Wow.
And we built all that having absolutely no idea how we were going to run the game. But Lady Bunny was going to be the MC, her and David Elku, and she said, "Oh, just build it, and we'll figure out something. Make a bunch of cool stuff, and we'll figure a game around it."
Right.
So, which we did, and it was a really fun show called "Give It All You Got." And they did a theme song. Bunny and David Elku recorded a theme song, and we had the music playing, and then they would sing the words live at the beginning of the show. I mean, it was really good.
That's incredible. So was it like how long did that run for?
About a year. Her and David Ilku were like the host and MC, whatever, and then they had a Vanna White. It was Floyd, and her name was Moot, and she was deaf and dumb, and she had one leg shorter than the other, and she would go do like whatever the Vanna White thing did.
Incredible.
And
Unbelievable.
Peter, and every week I would have to fight for all of these jobs, and it was like, Michael, do we really need Moot? We have Lady Bunny, David Ilku. Do we really need Moot? And I was like, oh my God, Peter, the whole show is designed around Moot. If you take Moot out, there's no point in doing the show.
So were you negotiating what each individual person was being paid for this as well? Like,
yeah.
So would it be like, I mean, it's like, most promoters or talent buyers in clubs are, they'll negotiate with a booking agent, like, who for a DJ or a touring artist to come in. So these are like these are personalities, and this is kind of not even, it goes beyond like burlesque. It's like more of like this kind of on stage reality.
It is very reality, Gio. And Peter would argue about just every, why Christopher Kump and Richie Rich and Tom Allen, why do we have all of them? And then, and I would say, Peter, this is a brick wall. And you want to take that brick out and that brick out. You can take 1 or 2 bricks out, but pretty soon you take and the whole foundation of the club is going to fall. And he would say, he would pretend to be a customer, and he would get on the phone and he'd say, hello, is this Tunnel? Are Christopher Kump and Richie Rich working tonight? They're not? Well, I'm not coming to the club then. And then he would, sometimes he would pretend to be his the boss at the bank, and he would say, Mr. Gatien, we regret to tell you that there's not enough money to pay your payroll account, but we heard that Lady Bunny and Larissa were at your club last night, so we're going to put all the checks through.
Did you ever do stuff in Brooklyn? Did you ever get out of Manhattan?
No.
At that time, there wasn't, besides Lemoore, no one would go that far out that was coming to your stuff.
No.
It was just all.
We didn't even live in Brooklyn back then.
No, God, no.
It would be insane.
How much did you bounce around as far as where you lived?
Not very much. I mean, I bought a loft in Chelsea in 1990, and I stayed there until about 94, and then I moved to Riverbank West.
Right.
In New York, you pretty much, unless you buy something, you move every year because you're always looking for bigger or cheaper or better neighborhood.
Right.
I think I moved every year for many years.
When you came here, you went to Fordham, right?
Yeah, I was living on campus.
So you were living in the dorm for a while?
But I hated it, and they hated it. And there was a big drama one night, and I had to get out of there very quickly because I lived in a quad, and I lived with a Archie Bunker bigot and an NOI white hater and a
NOI being Nation of Islam.
Yeah, and an exchange student from Puerto Rico who didn't speak English, and they all hated each other and me for various reasons. And one day when I was at class, I was in theology, and when I came back, all my photo albums were opened, and somebody had written faggot on every photograph, and it made me so upset.
That's awful.
That I opened up all the lockers of the 3 rooms. I took all their clothes and ripped all their clothes and broke their TV sets and just smashed everything. And when they came back to the room, I was on the floor grieving. And I said, guys, look, the room has been ransacked. Look what they did to my photos.
Oh my God. And that was it after that.
Yeah.
I can't. We're not going to have anything for Gabriel. I'm just telling you.
Give it to me. Send it to Natasha now.
I have been asking Natasha. She doesn't answer.
My phone.
I told her I need her, and she's not answering.
Do you tell her what it's about?
Yes, of course.
I'm fascinated with defunct clubs.
With old and decrepit people. That's why I'm here.
And but obviously you're associated with some of the more fabled rooms and the ones that Peter Gatien owned too. But there's some that were just as important in New York.
Just as important as Peter's club?
Yeah, I think so. For people that have there are people that have no idea who he is. That might be just picking up now on some of this history.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, with all this insane amount of flyers, invitations that I'm seeing so many that are from different rooms. So the cooler, what was this one all about?
That was an after-hour club.
Yes,
it was on 14th Street.
Yeah, and then Vito had one that was very popular too, AM PM.
Oh, AM PM, yeah.
So what was your you obviously did a lot of after-hours stuff too, clearly. And that's a kind of that's a almost extinct thing in New York.
Yes, it was kind of a racket we had because we made the after hours clubs pay us to go, and if they didn't, not only would we not go, but nobody else would go. So we would
bring the attendance with.
Well, kinda, but yes, we did. But we would, but there were 2 or 3 kind of main after hours clubs, and usually 2 of them, we were working at 2 of them at the same time. So we would go to after hours and then after hours, and then they would pay us each $100. So me, James, Balabolsky, and who was the 4th one? Anyway, there were 4 of us, and we each got $100 at each club. So we would just go collecting our money, and it was really like the mafia, like going to collect our payola.
How long would you spend at each place?
The first one maybe an hour or 2.
Depends on how much fun it is
and how many drugs there were. Yeah.
And those lasted less than any normal traditional club, obviously.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
What about Shelter? Now that was obviously a regular.
Shelter was where Area was.
Right. So that was following. That. How was your experience there?
It wasn't very fun. It was all legal. So there was nothing really exciting about it.
Right.
They didn't sell booze after hours or anything fun like that.
And by this time, this is already in the mid-90s too, right?
Oh, this was Shelter in Chicago.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Escape from New York.
Yeah, so some of these, there was a Limelight in Chicago as well, right? So
and Atlanta.
How are those?
I loved the Limelight in Chicago. Was beautiful. It was like in a museum.
Really?
With marble floors, and it's really, really beautiful.
Was it indicative of the Chicago house kind of scene? Did it embody that,
No.
or is it more like what was?
No, it did not, and that was the problem with it. It was not Chicago-y at all. It was very New York-y, and it had an attitude, and Chicagoans do not have attitudes, and they did not like it, and they did not go.
Right.
And they wanted to know who was this hoitsy-toitsy New Yorker coming in and with a doorman and picking people, and the doorman was even from New York. And from right off the bat, it was like, who do they think they are? And we're not going.
When you were growing up, did you go to Chicago? Did that inform you of a bigger? It's the closest city to South Bend, right? So.
Yeah, I went to Chicago all the time, and I went to the Limelight in Chicago.
What was but that was obviously afterwards.
Yeah.
But Yeah, what are your memories of Chicago just growing up? Because, I mean, it's before you could even saw like a nightclub or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
that was where I went to see anything that was cool or what I thought was cool.
Did you go to concerts like
No.
when you were growing up?
I'd never been. I went to my first concert when I moved to New York. Depeche Mode was my first concert.
Where was that?
The Beacon.
Oh, beautiful. Had you already gotten involved with Danceteria and stuff? Is it still yours? Yeah. So you pretty much like near the very beginning of being in New York, you found yourself in there.
Yeah, the first few months that I was here, one of my friends. I only had two friends in college. One was a lesbian, and the other one was a prostitute. And the prostitute was dating. Oh God, the prostitute was dating Keith Haring, who at the time wasn't a really big artist, but he was kind of becoming a big artist. And Keith would bring us to all these great parties. And that's how I went to my first nightclub. He took me to Area with
Really?
with my friend and Grace Jones, and it was a really big deal.
What do you mean with your friend and Grace Jones? She was not in tow, was she, or
Well,
she was there?
no, she was in tow. We met her at Keith's studio, and he painted her body in like squiggly colors and stuff, and we took her with us. And it was for like they were filming it for some either documentary or something. They were getting footage for something, but it was supposed to look like it was just like that out. But I didn't realize how famous Keith was becoming until I went home for Christmas that year, and I turned on MTV and I saw artwork done by him, and they were talking about him. And it was cool to me because I was just at a party with him, and it made me it legitimized everything I was doing and made me feel like I was on the right track. Tricked me to think I was on the right track.
Right. Would you see him again?
Oh yeah, I saw him all the time.
Did he frequent?
Yeah, and he gave my friend he has like 50 original Keith Haring paintings. And
Wow.
And lithographs, all kinds of stuff for millions of dollars.
That's incredible.
You know, if I had to do it all over again, I would be a prostitute, because all my friends who are prostitutes are really rich right now.
Well, they eventually got hip and then evolved into.
They all inherited the money that was by the rich men that were taking care of them. When they'd been died, they left them all the money.
When
It's
you
a really good plan.
Well, yeah, it's a plan, that's for sure. It's funny when you went back and you sort of were out of New York and you watched it on the TV, on MTV. I've always wondered too, because this is obviously during a period of time when MTV was becoming like this huge pop force. Were they at those? Were they at Disco 2000? Were they at the clubs these kind of things that you were doing?
MTV wasn't really cool. I mean, it was cool like in 82, 83, but by 84, 85, it wasn't really cool anymore. But they did. They were responsible for like supporting us financially. Like,
did they give you checks for parties? Like, did they fund?
MTV alone supported Palladium when they did what it was called.
Oh yeah,
MTV House of Style, was it?
Well, House of Style, yeah, that was.
Club MTV.
Yes, that was at the Palladium.
Yeah,
right.
and that alone, we wouldn't have to even open the doors. We could just be supported on that. And if it wasn't for MTV, they wouldn't have been able to afford all of our fabulous parties.
Well, those are gigantic rentals that they would, rent the room for a night or a day and a night.
Yeah, it was once a week.
Oh wow, really?
Time, Julie Brown.
So, what's the stuff that you? How are things going now? Like, you got the show, which is pretty regular. That's like a weekly thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Tell me about it. Break it down a little bit for people that might not even be familiar with it.
Outrage, you mean?
Well, you got Outrage and the TV show.
Oh yeah. Outrage is the party it's a weekly party that we do every Monday at 249 Eldridge, and it's a Rumpus Room, and then the Pew is supposed to be a daily web show, but it's not exactly daily. It's close to daily.
Right.
It's like Project X was monthly. But do you see a pattern emerging here, Jane?
So how, I know that we're just going over a bunch of stuff, sort of not in any kind of sequential order, and by looking at these flyers too, it just
invitations.
Yeah, I know. That's so funny. I keep. Yeah, I mean, how do you do you reflect back on this stuff as it was? Are you proud of all these gigs? And I mean, it's such a wealth of work. I mean, a lot of people might not necessarily, understand the, all the people involved in making these parties come together, and from the booking to the invites and creating them and conceptualizing all that stuff. Now that you have it all sort of in front of you, how does that feel?
I mean, I've always had them in front of me. They went with me everywhere I went, and so I mean, they're so much a part of me that I don't even notice them anymore.
Right.
But I mean, it's just a part of me. It's like my, my Lego collection, or all the other stuff that I have. It's a part of me. I don't even really think about it that much.
Do you think there'll be a day when you might be able to share all this artwork with people?
I am making a book out of it, but also, what I would like to do is I would like to find somebody like Nelson Sullivan's estate just recently sold his video collection, 8,000 videos, to NYU, and they're documenting everything and preserving it all.
Oh wow!
And I would like to find something similar, maybe NYU, since they bought up all the real estate and got rid of all the nightclubs. Maybe this would be a fitting. There would be a fitting people to take care of this. But somebody I would like to document it all and preserve it. And a college is probably the best.
There you go. That was my conversation with Michael Alig. Yes. Listen, I appreciate you guys checking it out and checking out The House List. It's my weekly podcast. And, I come into these conversations because I know this isn't like some of my previous episodes, but in a way it is just like previous episodes in that as a journalist, I come into a conversation with wanting to learn something. And with this one in particular, I wanted to learn and hear about certain aspects of New York City nightlife that I was fascinated with and interested in. I know that Michael Alig, to some people, may be a polarizing character, and I went into this fully being aware of that. I mean, how could you not? There's much documentation. But there is also no disputing that he played a large role in that era of New York City nightlife. From the Danceteria to Red Zone in area, but the Limelight, Palladium, the Tunnel, Club USA, amongst many others. And I wanted to attempt to get a sense of that, to get a taste of that. And I think that we did, and I'm glad to have done it. But it also goes without saying that those clubs and that period of time in New York City wouldn't be as memorable and legendary if it wasn't for a host of other people. There's so many facets, levels to it, to the puzzle. And I think I would be remiss to say that a lot of it has to do with the DJs that were spinning in those places. And I come from a musical background, and I am and have been a touring DJ and a club DJ, as well as a party promoter and a booking agent. So I'm coming from it from a few different angles, but I wanted to get to a certain crux of a specific kind of story. So I'm hoping that I accomplished that. And just like those parties and those concerts and so on and so forth, they wouldn't be sustained if it wasn't for people going there and buying tickets. and the audience, the people in the crowd that supported those short-lived clubs that for many have a lot of invaluable personal, stock in. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of make an after note of this conversation. So once again, if this is your first time tuning in, you can subscribe to the House List Podcast on iTunes. It's also on SoundCloud. Go to it if you're listening to podcasts just on a regular desktop computer. Go to soundcloud.com/TheHouseListPodcast. I'm also on Twitter @HouseListPod. You can find it basically where you can find most regular podcasts. Each and every episode is edited by my man CJ Stewart. My name again is Peter Agoston, the host and producer of the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys next episode.